Welcome back to Not Financial Advice. If you're new here, I'm going to ask you to subscribe to the channel. If you're one of my viewers, I'll ask you again to like the video as well, and we're going to just jump right into it. So, why is the stock market up today? That's a question that um, I was asking earlier today, so I thought I'd make a video on it. And we're also going to discuss some recent stock buys that I've made about 10 days ago and see what the short term performance of those investments have been. Before I dive right into it, I think, I should say that if you have not equal weighted the Magnificent Seven or FANG stocks. The market has essentially been flat for the last year or the last 2 years, excluding big tech. So if you're a value investor, this was a time here recently of some depression, second guessing your investments without confirmation in price by the market. But today was definitely a great day for value investors and for investors in general, more specifically, people who have been in the market as it's been choppy up and down in the last quarter. So, um, the stock markets today. The stock market today is essentially up because inflation readings were flat or lower than expected, which implies that the Federal Reserve is unlikely to raise rates at its next meeting. And what the market is really thinking about is what's it going to look like when when the Fed makes its first rate cuts? How is the market going to respond to that, be it in 3, 6, or 12 months? And so the market is really looking forward not only to the fact that we're unlikely to have an interest rate hike next month, but that at some point in the near to intermediate future, we will have a cut in interest rates, which historically makes the stock market soar. So I'm glad that I'm in position, even if it's been a painful ride. Just don't get off in the middle of the roller coaster, and you'll be all right. So let's look at the market results today. So the S&P 500 is up 1.9%. Dow Jones is up 1.43%. Tech heavy NASDAQ is up 2.4%. And fascinatingly, the Russell 2000, which is every mid and small cap stock in the United States, is up over 5.4% today. And so we can also see that the VIX, a measure of fear in the market, is down 4%. And what we can see is that today, as I said earlier, is a great day to be in the market for a lot of participants with different strategies. So, um, the investments that I placed were mostly at the opening of the stock market on Friday, November 3rd. And so we just covered what was the recent move in the market. But we're also going to just take this as an opportunity to look at my $1,198 of stock buys I placed about 10 days ago. So in the last, um, in the last 10-ish days, the market is up about 4.2%. And to so 4.2% in the last 10 days approximately. But today alone, the market again is up 1.92%. And so when we talk about interest rates not being risen and the prospect of interest rates being cut, be it in 3 or 6 months or what have you, um, some different cyclical or economically sensitive pieces of the markets that are subject to interest rate pressures, um, places in the market where taking out debt is part of their growth model. Those have responded really positive today. And so we're going to take a look not at things that I hold, but some of the best performers in the market, sort of on a sector or style basis. And so, what we can see here is that the Vanguard Real Estate ETF, VNQ, is up about 5.6% today. Vanguard Utilities sector is up 4.1% today. So both of these are sensitive to interest rates more so than anything. Very sensitive to interest rates is also going to be the home builders segment of the market. And so here we have the iShares U.S. Home Construction ETF, ITB, up 6.2% today. And then we're also looking at iShares Russell 2000 index, which we looked at earlier, up again about 5.5% today. So when interest rates are not rising or they may be cut, what happens and what happened today is the yield on bonds fell. So a lot of people had been going into bonds for, a juicy 5% dividend yield on 6 month or 2 year treasury bonds or notes, etc. So what happened with the news today the um, is that the interest rate or the coupon um, on treasury notes and bonds went down, as much in the last 10 days from as much as 5% down to 4.5% with certain durations. As the yields on treasuries and government bonds goes down, the price of bonds themselves goes up. It's a little bit complicated, but you can see here that the total U.S. bond market is up 1.22% today because bond yields are down precipitously based on the news we got in the market. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the buys. Again, these were executed on the morning of Friday, November 2nd. And so I'm showing you the performance since November they were executed on Friday, November the 3rd. I'm showing you the price performance since November 2nd. And so when I show you the performance of these investments that I've made, it's just going to be a hair under where they were recorded on November 2nd as I bought these at open with M1 Finance. So 10 days ago, staying true, I think, to my strategy of value investing. The concept, the only way to beat the market is to do things differently than the market. I made some purchases in companies and funds that I believed in. Ones that are temporarily out of favor, but I think that are undervalued. And at some point, a catalyst would cause the price of the security to reflect its intrinsic value. And a little bit of that value was unlocked today. So it's certainly very exciting. So about 10 days ago, I bought Smith& Wesson, Turning Point Brands, or excuse me, Smith& Wesson Tap, which is Coors beer, as well as Charles Schwab SCHD, essentially a U.S. dividend growth and leader ETF. And so I invested $55 in those three securities. Additionally, I just sort of put a lot of chips on the table in a couple different places. But with everything crazy going on in the world, SCHY is an international sort of dividend and value ETF. So I made that bet about 10 days ago, along with Google, one of the few tech names that I think is fairly valued at the moment. I also positioned myself further into healthcare, VHT, Vanguard's ETF, Meta, which is Facebook, which I think is slightly undervalued, or at least at that time was. Williams Sonoma, super high conviction bet for me. Very pleased with the results on that. We'll take a second out to look at that a little bit closer. If you haven't already, I'll ask you to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying this coverage and content. Uh, I also bought into Vanguard VFH, which is a bank ETF, because bankers have money and bankers' job is dealing with other people's money and then investing it at higher rates than they'll return to you. And there are very few skinny or starving bank presidents. So I like to have exposure to banks because I don't have a firm grasp on that sector. I just buy the ETF. Um, Here we have Spiders. I believe that's State Street's aerospace and defense ETF. It's one that I've been in. I didn't buy it because there's multiple wars going on. I've been in it, but I'm continuing to add to it. Historically, on a multiple basis, I think the sector's undervalued. So I added 55 in XAR, aerospace and defense, as well as $55 in VPU, Vanguard's utility ETF, which we just saw some exciting results on that a few moments ago. So um, additionally, I made a purchase of Ulta Beauty, which is a retailer of beauty products, consumer defensive. I'm always 100% in the market. I'm a little bit of a bear. I prefer defensive stocks. And so I bought into Ulta, which I think is about fairly valued at this time. And then lastly, my employer Roth 401k. There was a buy made 10 days ago of $538. So now what we're going to do is I've just sort of shared with you those dozen or so investments that I made about 10 days ago. So let's remind ourselves of how the market has performed in the last 10 days. I believe that that was just under 4.2%. So the market's returned about 4% in the last 10 days. Let's take a look at the specific investments I made as in comparison to the about 4% gain of the US stock market in the last 10 days. So looking at Smith and Wesson, this position is down 1%. TAP, Molson Coors, that's up about just under 3.3%, so lagging the market. SCHD still lagging the market, up a little bit less than 1.6%. SCHY up a little bit more than 3%, lagging the market. Google is outperforming the market, up just a little bit over 5% or around 5% in the last 10 days since I've bought that stock. Taking a look at Vanguard's VHT, uh, this stock or this ETF is up just around 1%, lagging the market. Meta is up, beating the market about 2x, just around 8% in the last 10 days on my meager investment that I made. Here's an exciting one. About matching the market, Williams Sonoma is up about 3.5%, a little bit under the market, but this is a good one to look at. So up 6.31% today. So a lot of volatility in this stock, but pretty proud. This is probably one of my top 10 positions, and it gained 6.31% today. So this individual investment actually had better performance than any of those interest rate sensitive sectors that I showed you. So really proud of this company's performance today. Excuse me. Go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we're going to keep on looking at this. So the bank ETF, VFH, is matching the market up around 4%, beating the market slightly. The aerospace and defense ETF I bought around 10 days ago is up just a little bit over 4%. Uh, Vanguard VPU, this one's flat, a little, probably about 0.5% up since I bought it last, but this has been a big jump. So at 4.1% today. Looking at Ulta Beauty, this is a security that is slightly beating the market, up just a little bit over 4%. And lastly, I've had some that have done really well. And of course, 10 days isn't any period of time to measure the results or returns of an investment. I just had fallen behind in keeping you guys updated on my portfolio progress. So I thought this would be a fun way to look at things. But the last investment that was made for me was through my workplace 401k. And so the Vanguard Total U.S. stock market, that's essentially that Fidelity mutual fund that I have. So that's going to include essentially 80% S&P 500 and 20% Russell 2000. That's the composition of the entire US stock market. This is beating the market. As opposed to 4%, this is up about 4.2%. So outperformance in the total US stock market. So we'll bring it right back here. Market today, market since my last investment is up just over 4%. Today, the US stock market, as reflected by the S&P 500, is up 1.92%. And we talked about some of the reasons why that is. And we'll come back here to close this video out. I'll ask you to like and subscribe, but we can see all through here how the market performed today. Certainly exciting. And unfortunately, I have some more buys to make tomorrow. Hopefully the market sells off a little bit so I can capture some more value. All right. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like it on your way out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.